So we had so much fun doing the worst GM draft last week that we created another draft that we haven't come up with the perfect title yet, but it's something like I'm just not going to be surprised if you're on another team in 2 months. That's the draft.
I can't
Right
believe
now
it's
it
not
is-
Lillard draft.
If that's fine. Basically, the last couple years, and I remember if you go back a year ago, Russillo and I are talking about the Nets, and both of us had spidey senses with them. Like, you know what? Just wouldn't be shocked if shit started going down with that team. But we there was no smoke signals, there was no KD trade request, nothing. But it was almost we were like hunters in the wilderness, where it was like, I smell bear feces down that let's go left because I just catching a whiff of the bear feces if we go right. Let's go left.
Did you watch some sort of outdoors movie on the flight?
Might have watched Blood Diamond. No, I might have watched Blood Diamond. Chris Ryan and I might be doing Blood Diamond for the rewatchables soon. And I was watching Leo in that one.
Is Blood Diamond good?
Blood Diamond's amazing.
I've watched it. Trust me. It's Leo.
No, watch it. Blood Diamond's great.
I got to watch it.
Yeah,
again.
so
right.
Leo's character in that movie could smell he kind of smell the different scents. So you and I can smell the scents of the summer in the NBA. And I'll give you first pick.
No. I want a counterpunch because I always get first pick.
Okay, I'll go first then. Great. My first pick is Bradley Beal. I think Winger is going to go into this Wizards job, and he's already had some interesting quotes. I don't think he wants to go 38 and 44 or 41 and 41 or 42 and 40 or 39 and 43 for the next 5 years. I think he wants a real plan, and it feels a little blow it uppy to me, and I think that's actually what they should do. They have the 7th pick. They have some assets. If your big three is Porzingis and Beal and Kyle Kuzma, I hate to break it to you, but there's not going to be a lot of long postseason runs in your future. And I think Bradley Beal, even though he has a no trade clause, is going to be traded this summer.
Man, it sounds like somebody's been doing some chatting on the phone. That's a great pick.
What made you? Oh, you like that pick? Was he on your board?
He was my first pick. I was going to take.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Yeah. All right. So do you have anything to add?
I just think with the overhaul, everything, it might be time, maybe before it's another year. He doesn't play a ton. He's getting older. The problem with the Wizards, as we said throughout it, is they're paying A money to guys that are kind of B minuses. They have a massive decision on Porzingis. That contract would scare the hell out of me. You could say, hey, let him walk, but then you always worry about the asset. I would hope they would try to. You can't just go like, hey, we don't like any of our guys. This team hasn't been very good. Like a lot of times the problem with the job is you end up signing guys you didn't even want. But it starts with Beal. The Beal move is the first piece to this. And now that it feels like they finally they're trying to turn the page, even if some of the guys back will feel like, hey, wait, this isn't a completely revamped roster. I just really like the pick. I like the pick, but it was always up to Beal. And it always felt like, and for years we were right about this, in that every time he was like the next guy, we were consistently saying, like, I think he wants the 5-year deal first, and then he'll start calling his shots. And this might be like a collaborative thing. So,
man, we almost could have led the pod with this because now there's 2 directions we could go with Beal. Close to Jason Tatum. It's the Beal Jaylen Brown rumor has always been the rumor, but I don't know why you would trade Jaylen Brown because the new CBA is.
I wouldn't trade Jaylen for Beal. I wouldn't.
Oh, I wouldn't either. But I'm saying with the second apron, now it's like the whole reason if you're going to trade Jaylen Brown would be because you don't want to have 2 super expensive guys. So then you can't trade him for Bradley Beal. Counter to my point that I just made. You got to be in the keep my superstar happy business. It's the number one business to be in these days if you're an NBA owner. Tatum loves Beal. And maybe that's the reason you do it. I don't think they will, but that's the only reason in a million years I would think it would make sense to do a trade with Jaylen Brown and Bradley Beal. Now, if Washington offered them number 7 and Bradley Beal for Brown and, Rob Williams.
Ish Smith sprinkles.
Maybe make some stuff work. I don't know. I wouldn't do it, but I just don't think hey, we have to make sure Tatum is happy at all times thing can be ruled out. But my bet, the odds-on favorite, I would put them minus 200 would be Philadelphia.
By the way, I'm aware Ish Smith is not on the team. He just feels like he's
I know. I like
Wizards.
The joke. Ish Smith's always good for those sprinkle jokes.
Yeah.
My odds-on favorite is Philadelphia, and I don't even think it's close. Beal and Embiid, they're friends. Embiid was trying to get him 2 years ago, which I kept telling people on this podcast. They ended up going with Harden instead. Embiid was pushing hard for Beal. Harden's going to leave. There's a lot of ways it could go. And if you're Washington, and you and I we've had some off podcast arguments about what Beal's value actually is. But for the money that he's making, where it goes into the 50s pretty quickly, I don't think that's an asset in the second apron NBA. I don't see it. But if you're Philly and you're going to lose Harden, and now I have the shooter that's probably a better fit with Embiid anyway, and I have Tobias Harris and an expiring contract. There's a couple future draft picks I could probably throw that I could probably find in my pocket somewhere. And if you're Washington, it's like, you know what? We got out of the Beal contract. We have Harris as an expiring, and we're rebooting everything.
Well, if you were and we're all doing hypotheticals here, even though I would agree that the Beal thing, especially if Beal were to say like, okay, maybe it has run its course, new guys in here and the whole deal.
But it has to go somewhere that he wants to go because he has the hammer.
Well, does he though? In the
old
old
trade
world,
clause, he could just say no thanks. Hey, we traded you to Portland. Yeah, it's like we traded you to Portland. Good news. It's like, no, you actually didn't. I vote no. I'm not going to Portland. No, thank you.
Right. Because I was thinking about the extension, but you're right. So a guy like Beal, though, you shouldn't have to give up an all NBA player for him.
Not at the price he's at.
That's not the way these transactions work. So that's why I think to keep Tatum happy, and then it's like, okay, so what you did, and this is all hypothetical, which we're not even saying is going to happen, is you decided instead of like, hey, here's the one young guy and some salary filler and some picks with different swaps and different protections on him, the whole thing. No, here's a guy in his prime that just made all NBA. You don't do that. So that's why that's a non-starter. As far as the Philly part of it, like, look, not breaking news. Not exactly the biggest Harden guy. But at least Harden gets into the playoffs.
Right,
Beal can't even get his team in to anything that, like, I think one of the worst, I was talking with somebody about this the other night. I think one of the worst playoff series as far as like talent. Oh, it's off of the Miami stuff again. Like back to like, when's the last time you saw teams like that were just less talented? That Isaiah Thomas Celtics team that beat the Wizards in the second round 6 years ago. Like that was the first sign of like, what's wrong with these guys? But Wall was still there. Morris was still there. And they talk shit to everybody and whatever. And then I feel like everybody kind of became Team Beal because Wall was hurt. Wall was like a different
Beal was good in that game 7, I remember.
He was. But, if you're worth this kind of thing, and it kind of gets back to your second apron deal, is like maybe even just 2 years ago, you go, all right, this contract sucks, whatever, not a big deal. But now you're going, wait, I don't know that we can have, and even Lillard kind of falls into this. Can you have this kind of transaction with dudes who owed $60 million in 3 years with this new apron design?
Let me give you the Beal numbers. Right now it's 43.2. Next season, 46.7. Jumps up to 50.2. 53.66 in the 2025-26 season. Player option for 57.1. So he has...
Probably pick that one up.
It's one of my favorite Russillo jokes. He's got like $205 million remaining after we get through. So right now, if you trade him before July 1st, he's at 43.2. And, Harris fits. Like Harris makes 40, and there's a way to make that work. And Washington would just be basically cutting bait. Maybe they could reroute Harris, buy him out, whatever. The other way to do it is if Harden ends up going to Houston and you try to figure out some sort of goofy sign-in trade with them where you can get the entire salary cap exception from trading Harden out, then you could just trade for Beal and keep Harris. So let's say they say to Houston, oh, you're going to take him anyway? Well, what if you do this? Start his contract at $47 million, We'll give you like a second round pick in 2029. We'll trade him to you in your cap space. And then we get this trade exception. We just move Beal into it and keep Harris. So, my point is Philly's the pick. Who do you have with your first pick?
I'm just going to add one little line to it. As much as I don't like Harden, even I don't think he would pull a move. Well, I shouldn't say that. But it's one of the all-time loser moves if he leaves Philadelphia as a, whatever you think of them as a contender, to be like, I'll just take Houston's cap space. Like, even I don't know that he would do that. Because money's the same. The money's basically the same.
Does he care though? I'm just not sure that some of these guys care that much. He's like, you know what? I've made an absolute shitload of money. If you're Harden, you'd be like, I've made $400 million playing basketball, or 350 or 300, whatever the final number is. I had a great career. I'm going to the Hall of Fame. I won an MVP. Like, I really like living in Houston. I'm good. Maybe we'll be good in 2 years and we can win the title 2 years from now. But I love it here.
I want it to happen so bad.
It would be a very telling exclamation point in his legacy.
I wanted it to happen so bad.
But I mean, they could sell him on eBay. They could say like, you're the first of many moves. We're going to be good right away. We're going to be competitive.
You could say he doesn't care. He doesn't care. And certainly like, the way I would say most people finally come around on it, where you would go, I mean, the only people that were fighting the reality of who he is in the playoffs were the people that were emotionally invested in that team having a good outcome.
Yeah.
Right. Nobody wanted to admit it if you were still rooting for him the entire time. But I still think most players would be like, dude, we still have a chance, right? Boston's all dinged up. Who knows what's going to happen with them? Milwaukee's kind of in this weird phase of like the beginning of phase 2. Miami's not coming in next year as a favorite. Brooklyn's kind of a mess. Like,
that's a great point. The East is wide open.
Right. So if you're Daryl Morey pitching this to Harden, which I don't think Daryl gives a shit about the back end years of anything, because his history shows he doesn't care. He'll just be like, whatever, I'll figure out later. Granted, the PJ Tucker 40-year-old.
The GM empowerment era?
But to go like, hey, just give me one more. We'll give you every last dollar we can give you, okay? And the way it works on the over 38 rule, like they could offer him 5, but the money has to fit in the first 4, so that's why it's the same money. So they actually don't have the advantage they normally have. I think everybody understands this has been over it. Then you factor in the state taxes, that it's kind of, from what I've looked at, it's a wash. But you'd still think like, hey, I picked you up at the Jet, man. I tweeted about how good you were for like 6 years.
Yeah, I'm literally carrying your legacy on my back.
I wrote a dossier to fucking the NBA to save your legacy in 2018. Like, I've had your back. Like, can you give me one more year and then I'll trade you to Houston if you want to?
What if Embiid doesn't want to play with him though?
Okay, but who do you want to like? You want to play with
back
Beal?
To Bradley Beal? Yeah,
right.
And Maxey gets more. It's basically here's our big 3: Embiid, Beal, and Maxey.
Brought in this guy with all this playoff success. His name's Bradley Beal.
All right. My first pick was Bradley Beal. What's your first pick?
The head of Zion's PR team. Be a different team next year.
Fair. So you think Zion's traded?
No, I don't. I don't think he's traded. I think a guy having a ton of sex is not really going to ruin his trade value all that much. If he were playing and playing well, this would be treated a little differently. But I'd say at this point now, after this entire week, I actually feel bad for him. So there's my Zion commentary.
I've been there a couple months ago.
What? You accused of having sex with a ton of people?
No, I feel bad for him.
Oh,
I think he's in the wrong city, and I don't know the Ja thing too. I think these guys in their early 20s that I don't know, man. Clearly they have nobody in their lives who could be like, yo.
No, the problem for Zion is the guys in his lives are also doing this with him, most likely. And they're like, this is sick. This is awesome.
This is great.
Like, okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and this isn't one of the headliners. I'm going to go John Collins. He's finally out.
John Collins did not have that on my board. Do you think this is it? They finally trade him after 2 years?
Could his agent just call and go, hey guys, like, he's just on the FaceTime shrugging, being like, you've been trying to trade my guy forever. He's like the new Miles Turner. So I was trying to think of certainty. And I'm not even certain. It's not based on any information. There has to be a couple moving parts in Atlanta here.
I like it. My next pick, I'm just going to go Dame Lillard because he just needs to go in the top 3. Good value. Probably could have gone first. If Scoot wasn't going to be sitting there at number 3, I wouldn't even consider this. But I just think I don't know exactly who owns Portland these days. There's always been weird rumors about that they're not available for whatever reason, even though like Phil Knight's been trying to buy them and all this stuff. But I just don't know how you take Scoot Henderson and then keep Dame. That makes no sense to me. And I also don't think it doesn't make any sense to trade Scoot Henderson. It makes way more sense to trade Dame than it does to trade Scoot Henderson. So Dame would be my pick.
There's another version of this where he goes number 1, honestly. So I probably would have taken him with this pick now, despite us trying to have any conversation about where he actually fits and us not really coming to any kind of conclusion on it. I'll see your Dame, and I'll go Grant Williams.
Grant, so you really opened it up to the non-stars. Grant Williams doesn't even count. He's definitely going to be on another team next year. What are you talking about?
All right,
the Celtics next year. I'm vetoing that one.
We're doing stars.
Okay. No, but Grant Williams is 100% not going to be in the Celtics next year.
So basically, it's hey, let's be wrong on 8 of these. Okay, all right.
I thought we were doing stars. I didn't realize. Well, I'll take Bruce Brown then. All right, back to you.
Josh Hart opts out. So you wanted us to come up with 10 stars that we think are likely to be gone?
Stars are close. No, not likely, but
all right. Well,
just I wouldn't be surprised in August if this guy was on another team.
All right. Despite me disagreeing with the timing of the report from Chris Haynes, because I don't know how you could know that Chris Paul was being waived on June 7th, when they had 3 weeks from that date to figure out the trade market for Ayton, the trade market for Chris Paul. Do they want to keep him at $30 million? Do they want to waive him, not stretch him, re-sign him? If they do stretch him, then it opens up some more cap space. There are moves that exist that you cannot assume you know. So I think what happens is Paul meets with Phoenix on Wednesday. Waive is brought up as an option. Chris Haynes probably talked to Chris Paul. I don't believe guys make stuff up. I don't think Chris Haynes, but it'd be like me guessing the lottery numbers one week and then the next week I told you. It'd be like, you may have gotten it right. There's no way you actually knew what the lottery numbers were. So Chris Haynes could still be right about this, but I think value for somebody who's at least name recognition, because Chris Paul is not a star anymore. I'll take him forward.
No, Chris Paul is name recognition is a good way to frame this, and it's a great pick. The reason I was so stunned when Haynes tweeted that was because I didn't understand why they were making the decision now when you never know if there's a team that wants to give you an asset because they want to acquire Chris Paul so that it can waive him for $16 million and get off the cap and get off some asset that's a $32 million asset, get Chris Paul and then waive him. So it didn't add up to me.
It doesn't
like Dallas could be like, we'll trade you Kyrie Irving, sign and trade. We'll take Chris Paul back. And then we'll keep him. We can waive him. We can flip him to a third team. There's too many options for him with that contract. So we agree.
I guess I got to cross Christian Wood off my board. I can't wait to know how many. I'd love to know what your 10 stars were because this is hard.
Well, you're going to be jealous of this pick too. Karl-Anthony Towns.
All right. All right. Based on this, like the likelihood of it, you're right. He should have gone higher.
Yeah.
Probably should have gone higher. But I would imagine they're going to try this one more time with everybody healthy. And
that would be insane to be like, let's run it back. We didn't see enough. Not a big enough sample size of Gobert, Towns, and Anthony Edwards. Plus, we have to pay some point guard. I just find it hard to believe he's going to be on the team next year, but maybe I'm nuts. You're up. I mean, somebody's got to take Jalen at some point.
Yeah, I'm going to wait.
Okay.
I'll go Jared Allen.
What a great pick. Really nice. I like it.
Cleveland's got to be a little scared here because the Mitchell window is already almost over.
Right.
Right. And everything that could have got, like, there is such a great story. The number one defense in the league. that Knicks series has to be in their heads. We're like, what the fuck was that? Like, what just happened to our dudes? Remember that third quarter stretch with Darius Garland? How come that only happened like one time?
They were even worse coached than the Celtics in the playoffs. And I'll tell you this, I don't know if you've thought about this before, but why did they waive Kevin Love? Guys have played in the finals right now. He was on the Cavs.
I want to get Kevin Love on so bad, but I almost want to get him on so you can talk to him. Like you can have him on.
I just want to be like, what happened, man? How were the Cavs not playing you 25 minutes a game when they had no backup bigs?
The request has been in because I want to talk about the Miami run. I want to talk about his Cologne back in Minnesota numbers, which is still available, I think, at dillards.com. But if we get him, I may tell Allison, let Bill have him. He deserves.
I think we do it together. I think we tag team him.
By the way, congrats. He just had a kid.
I'm going to stay in the Cavs since you opened the door. I'm going to go Darius Garland.
No way. That's the worst pick of the entire thing so far.
Listen, I had to have taken Flyers.
Why would they do that?
What if somebody awesome's available?
What do you mean? Like an awesome, young, potentially third team all NBA point guard that shows that he can be a really good teammate and can shoot and pass?
What if Jaylen Brown and Donovan Mitchell start texting each other about how much how much fun it would be to play with each other? I don't know. Cleveland to me I'm with you. I thought the Jared Allen pick was good. The only two people I know are going to be on that team are Mobley and Mitchell. I also could have taken Mitchell in that spot.
I would trade Jaylen Brown and his Neesmith shoes for Darius Garland in 2 seconds.
I would too. We are both aligned on young Darius.
This segment's way more fun than me going.
Than you taking
Bertans.
Grant Williams and Bertans. Well, let me ask you this: are you sold on Garland and Donovan Mitchell as the foundation with Mobley as that's your three going forward, and we're going to win a title someday with these guys?
If you're asking me if they're going to win a title, the answer is more likely no than it is yes.
Well, that's true. It's 1 in 30 odds.
Right. You've got me. I think what was alarming was that Allen-Mobley pairing, which was so good in the regular season defensively, because those guys are that good defensively, that then you become exposed because you have two non-offensive players on the floor, like back in the old days when it would be 2 or 3 of those guys in the playoffs. And now it's not only those two dudes, but then you're constantly searching for that small forward, which they never were really able to come up with an answer for that they felt good about. So at times when you watch the Cavs offense, and then when you take out one of the guards, you're like, is Mobley even somebody who initiates his own offense? Certainly not at playoff level, right? Allen's still a little reluctant for me, even though I'd love to have him.
I think he's fallen off. To me, it's not a big four. Like, you and I are aligned. I would trade Mitchell before I traded Garland. But if they traded Garland for like some awesome small forward or somebody who fit better on paper than Mitchell, I wouldn't be like stunned. All right, you're up.
By the way, I think that might be the one that makes the most sense is give the ball back to Mitchell, Utah days. I mean, that's kind of what I loved so much about what I saw from Cleveland this year is that Mitchell. And, despite what the playoffs were, do we realize what this guy did in some of these games this season? Like, he was insane. He was like in the MVP conversation at the beginning of the year. So that playoff thing shook me to my core, and I didn't work for the team. But the Mitchell, Brown, Mobley, Allen thing, did you just stumble on something amazing that you also would like, and it actually wasn't from a Homer-based deal? Wow. I kind of like what you just did there, Bill.
There are 2 Darius Garland teams I was thinking about. Just because of the guys who are available. The other would be Siakam. And by the way, I would not trade Garland for Siakam either, and I wouldn't trade for Jaylen Brown straight up. I wouldn't do either. You and I value Garland the most. We're going to be right on Garland down the road. People are going to be like, oh, yeah, Simmons and Russillo. Not that it's like he's one of the best young assets in the league.
I think people know.
I'm all in. No, but I'm all in on him as like, I think he can be that guy. I think he can at least be Murray next to Jokic on the right team, and that person should be Mobley. I would not trade him. You're up.
Okay. Nobody's taken Harden yet.
Yeah, you can do it. I felt like it was cheating. Well, maybe you're right, though. Maybe he could stay. It's fair. Take him.
So wait, today, gun to your head, which is aggressive, you would say he goes to Houston.
Yes.
Everybody seems to be saying the same thing. I can't believe I'm the guy being like, would he even do that? Would he even do that? I'll take him. I'll take him 8th. That's lower than I think people had in the mocks. Like, what's wrong with that guy? Did you see?
I'm going to take a flyer on LaMelo Ball.
Yeah,
I'm just
crazy.
craps table. Like I'm just betting. I'm betting on the 2 1s for the next roll, where it's like, oh, give me 2 1s, give me 2 6s. I still this whole Charlotte picking 2 and Portland picking 3. If you love Scoot, and you and I both love Scoot, if Charlotte spends real time with Scoot and they're like, holy shit. By the way, they should just keep Scoot and LaMelo. I don't know. I had him written down, and I'm just going to mention him. You go.
All right, so you had a Scoot. I don't think they do that. I think he's still new enough, and it's been fun enough, despite the injuries. There's been no expectations on the team to win. I think he is such a big deal to young people, and even though he doesn't really get, like, you wouldn't go, oh man, he's one of the true stars in this league. His playing style and his notoriety coming in, I think that's really important for that franchise. It's like Trae Young, but not as good of a player.
How about
Why are
this?
you laughing?
I just like that you were trying to it. Orlando says, hey, Fultz, 6, 11, and unprotected first next year for LaMelo. Let's go. Let's dance.
Fultz is good now.
Cerruti, would you do that?
I love it. I love it. We go back. Like, Cerruti's like an arbiter.
I just gave Cerruti a big 3. He's got LaMelo, Paolo, and Franz Wagner.
I'm going to lay out. I love when you do this.
I get accused of turning down every trade proposal that you offer up to me for the Magic, and people think I'm just like, my expectations are too high. I'm just not. The LaMelo doesn't move the needle for me, man. I just want to
no to every one of them.
I just want to see. I just want to see a couple years of Franz and Paolo figure it out.
Games last year. They won back-to-back titles. They could break the 73 win record. I just don't want to break up the score.
He's like the Yankees talking about trading Bernie Williams in 2000. He's like, wow, we've won 3 World Series with him.
Can I just see those guys for 2? I just want to see them for a couple years. Can we just see what they are first before we start like making this complicated? I don't know.
Cerruti, do you think if you worked with 2 different podcasters, you would feel differently about LaMelo? But you watch. You're a league pass guy, so you watch. So you don't need us to shape.
LaMelo stuff isn't promising. Yeah, it's not. It doesn't look great. I wouldn't. I just. Why are you taking that risk?
He has had dumb injuries. I will say, like, I'm not ready to say like he's not durable, because I think he's had dopey injuries. Not like where Lonzo, there's something clearly wrong.
Yeah, you're right. They've been unlucky, although
unlucky injuries. He's an unlucky injury guy.
I'm upset that Cerruti was away during, Worst Take, because he was our compass for Worst Take on my pod. But Rick Kamla, who I know is your boy, blamed
Rick Kamla.
Oh, no, wait. You're a Termini and Johnson guy.
Termini's my guy.
Right.
And Eddie Johnson's my hero.
But Kamla from NBA Radio, maybe I'm more Kamla AD. I don't want to, I don't know.
Okay, fair.
All right. I think I listen to those guys more just because of the time of the day that I'm in the car, which I think I put 8,000 miles on in 2 years. Somebody doesn't drive a lot. Somebody doesn't do a ton. Kamla blamed the guy in the courtside seats for LaMelo's injury when he dove in. He said he needs to do a better job. It was one of the all-time takes. It was so good. That's awesome. Why, I'm not doing this to make fun of Kamla because I've known him a really long time. You read it the first time and you went, did somebody come up with that? That's what I love about the human race, is that you'd be like, well, no one would think that. And you're like, yeah, there is. Couple dudes were like, be better. People agreed. So they are unlucky injuries.
I heard Camel once talking about Embiid, whether he was going to play or not. And he said about facing the pressure.
Oh,
and
no.
he said how he wakes up every day knowing he has to do a show with AD and he wants that pressure and he thrives in that pressure. And it was awesome. I was like, fucking Rick Gamma. I get it, man. There's a hidden pressure with getting that show ready every day. I feel it. I felt it today planning out the show. Seriously.
Hey,
Some
look,
pressure on
I,
us. We want to have good topics.
I can't say shit because too many times already in my career, I've been like, I don't know what this guy's looking for in free agency. I remember the first time I sat down with Mo Davenport to talk about my days count, year 3 at ESPN, right? So I'm just as guilty of it.
All right, so we're gonna wrap up the draft. Cerruti, stay on because we're gonna do nephew corner and recap Kyle's wedding.
I still have another pick.
Well, apologies. I had the guys still on my board: Trae Young, Joel Embiid, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and Mikal Bridges.
Guys.
No, those are all guys that I wouldn't be like, it wouldn't absolutely stun me if those guys weren't on their same teams in 2 months. Wouldn't be shocked.
I think DeJounte Murray, just throw his name in the mix too.
Oh, I like that one. Okay.